Sustainability is an extremely interdisciplinary field. We're not just talking about flicking off lights, we're talking about human resources and natural resources. In the Sustainable Practices program here at the University of Colorado, we're going to try to give you tools and strategies to complement your skills and your strengths so that you can then apply it towards an area of sustainability where you'd like to focus. The Sustainable Practices program will provide you with courses that will allow you to focus down on content that you're interested in. One could also be more of a generalist about sustainability, where you're working as a consultant within an organization. A broad understanding will serve you well. Let's talk about building and energy consumption. When you're talking about the 4 quadrants of energy consumption within the United States, you can talk about residential, transportation, commercial, and industrial. Within these 4 quadrants, building is a major component. One could look at an individual building and figure out where all of the energy goes, like heating, cooling, lighting. Another aspect of energy in the built environment is embodied energy, and that's the sum of energy necessary for an entire product life cycle. More explicitly, we're talking about the construction, the usage, the maintenance, and the disposal of the product once it's done. All of these aspects use energy, and carbon dioxide is emitted. There are many advances in the field of embodied energy within a built environment, such as advanced framing of a house, sealing up your house, sealing up the envelope, lighting techniques, Energy Star appliances, and LEED certification. Waste management and recycling are key growth sectors in the sustainability fields. If we're talking about landfills, there are huge costs to building landfills and retiring them. They also emit huge amounts of carbon. So if you think about it, we're throwing away resources that we might want to use in the future. If we're throwing away so many resources, there's huge amounts of money to be made and saved by working through recycling. The United States has great potential for recycling programs. Studies have shown that with improved qualities of life, people produce more waste. In fact, the average American, through their lifespan, produces about 64 tons of waste. This is about a ton every year. Just think about how much money we could save or make if we were to recycle just a fraction of that waste. We want to change the paradigm of people throwing things away, because really, there is no away. This is an opportunity for us to tap into a new area of resources. Let's move on to water and water conservation. Life requires fresh water to survive, but surprisingly, on a wet planet, a small fraction of the water is fresh. 97% of the water is salt water in oceans. 2.4% is locked in ice caps. Only 0.6% are in rivers, streams, and lakes. Water consumption doesn't just happen in homes. It can happen in industry, like producing energy, agriculture, or mining. Water conservation, particularly potable water, is an essential component of sustainable practices. From nature to industry, how do we refine how we use, manage, and distribute water? We have to change habits. What are the default settings in society and individuals? Maybe we could reduce our use of turf grass, discontinue use of bottled water, stop washing sidewalks with water. How about using gray water and runoff for agriculture? Water is oftentimes taken for granted, particularly in countries like the United States. Agriculture, industry, and recreation all depend on water. But the equation changes when shortages start. People start diverting water towards reservoirs or towards agricultural use. And this takes water away from communities and from wildlife. On a planet where climate is changing, habits matter. We have to pay attention to what we're doing with our resources. And by doing so, we can save money. Let's talk about transportation next. A lot of times when I think about transportation, I think about my car emitting pollution or CO2 out of the tailpipe. Additionally, cars take a huge amount of energy to produce. About 33% of the energy required to make a car comes from ore extraction. Sometimes it makes more sense to keep your old car rather than buying a newer, greener car because it produces less CO2. We use a tremendous amount of energy transporting ourselves and goods around. So it makes us think about how we might be able to address and encourage alternative transportation. Additionally, let's think of some new technologies as to how we can get ourselves around without leaving such a huge carbon footprint and using so many resources. All right, design, redesign, and planning. A lot of people are thinking about how they might be able to use resources and energy more efficiently. How do we design products, buildings, and roads to be more efficient? We need a fresh new outlook. Let's talk about biomimicry. Biomimicry is when we look at something in nature and take its cues. Cradle to cradle and integrative and regenerative designs all come from the model of nature, whereby we can grow commerce and we can grow industry hand in hand with nature. Food is our next topic. And most of our food comes from monoculture. And monoculture is extremely consumptive of energy and water. Additionally, we use genetically modified organisms. Herbicides and pesticides are used. This creates water pollution and decreases biodiversity. Coming from an agriculture perspective, how are we going to be successful sustainability professionals? Well, we have to think more about polyculture, growing more types of plants on a given space. There's more land use efficiency. Additionally, let's focus on organic foods, more nutrients, and also support local farmers. Lastly, we have to think hard about water conservation. Another key concept to consider with food sustainability is food miles. How far does a piece of food have to travel before it gets to the consumer? In the United States, the average piece of food travels 1,500 miles. That's absolutely huge. This is more than fuel consumption. We're talking about storage, refrigeration, and food degeneration. Oppositely, if we support organic or local food industries, you get fresh food that's nutrient-rich. There's a smaller carbon footprint, it supports local industries, and there's a higher yield per unit area. Understanding agriculture systems is important for sustainability professionals because food is integrated into so many systems like hospitals, schools, and airports. Carbon emissions and energy use. Organizations are paying closer attention to their greenhouse gas emissions because of corporate liabilities. What are we talking about? Well, a lot of corporations think about climate change. They're producing carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas. Additionally, the public is concerned about sustainability, so corporations and organizations want to court those individuals. Let's talk about a couple corporate examples. Walmart and McDonald's. They're increasingly becoming leaders in sustainability. They're setting industry standards and they're transforming the supply chain. They're affecting those corporations that are upstream of their final product. Additionally, renewable energies and mitigation steps to reduce carbon emissions are a big part of the baseline of operations for these big corporations. What does this mean? Governments, businesses, campuses, and NGOs are not only leading the way in sustainability, but they're putting it as their baseline of operations. Businesses are being pushed to reduce their carbon footprint. They can do it directly by choices like transportation within their entity, or indirectly, like where they get their energy. They could choose possibly a renewable energy source. Just about every carbon source has a mitigation strategy. And what we need right now are sustainability professionals to champion and lead the way with these technologies and new ones. Next is consuming and purchasing. There's power in purchasing. We have decisions to make. What to buy, how much, how often, for whom, and how we want it to be. Ultimately, we're an integral part of the supply and demand economy. We make decisions that power industries. We can have impact as individuals, or we can reach out to organizations to be more mindful of their large-scale business purchases. Let's talk about some basic calculations. Sometimes when you put a little bit more money up front, you get a more durable and efficient product that uses less energy and has small operation costs. This equals money saved in the end. Therefore, it's often effective to make assessments of your economic strategies. These sort of calculations work. How about replacements or fixing parts? We have to go back to embodied energy. How much energy is consumed through the life cycle of a particular product? Oftentimes, it's more useful for us to fix something than replace it. How do we drive the market towards sustainability? There are a few different things that we can do. With proposal writing, we can integrate sustainability. We also want to know consumer habits and see if we can work within the bounds of consumers to change those habits. Social equity, climate justice, and energy justice. This comes down to what quality of life do you want for all individuals on the planet? If people want to be like Americans, you have to have 6 planets of resources. So it's not that reasonable. So how do we get our needs met? Climate justice refers to the concept that the haves, or the people with the resources and the money, have been creating energy for centuries. This has been producing pollutants and greenhouse gases. Do people in developing countries deserve the same luxuries that we had as first world countries? This really affects everybody, particularly people near sea level, where sea level is going to rise, or in areas where ecology is changing most dramatically, like in Alaska, where temperatures have increased by about 5 degrees in the past century. This is oftentimes impacting the have-nots the most because they're already on the edge of survival. Corporations are always on the search for new pathways of corporate social responsibility. They want to improve and create tangible benefits for their stakeholders, employees, and the people who purchase their goods. Progress is underway, but we need to create an infrastructure that has a groundswell of support. We also need to ask the question, what can the planet provide? What is the carrying capacity of the planet? Because we have to fit within those bounds in order to be sustainable. This is not an easy topic to tackle. We just talked about a huge set of topics and issues for sustainability professionals to focus their energies on. Now let's talk about some tools that people are currently implementing in order to tackle some of these sustainability issues. First is the ecological footprint. What is the human demand on an ecosystem? Energy audits is a key component of sustainable practices. It's a tool that people have been using for quite some time. Specialists inspect and analyze energy consumption. They try to assess energy-saving measures without affecting comfort and functionality. Next is LEED certification. And LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. This is a third-party international certification process whereby buildings and communities can have it proven that they're using strategies for energy saving, water efficiency, CO2 emission reduction, improved indoor environmental quality, and stewardship of resources. Cradle to Cradle is a framework for industry, economy, and society, whereby everything is modeled on nature, where it's efficient, it's circular, and it's waste-free. This way, nature and commerce can coexist harmoniously. ISO standards. 2 standards are of particular note: the design and implementation of environmental management systems, and 2 standards for energy management. Life cycle assessment and cost analysis. How much energy does it cost to own an object, a product, through its life cycle? This sort of analysis allows you to do checks and balances. Great ideas are being implemented, but we need more applications of these tools. Additionally, we need advances in the technology that we currently have. Many of these concepts are examined in greater detail in advanced courses in the Sustainable Practices program here at the University of Colorado. Thanks for your time, your attention, and hopefully we'll see you again.